Silence isn't empty, my friends. It's full of answers. You see, most people think silence means weakness. They think if you're quiet, you've lost. But what if I told you silence is the strongest response you'll ever give? What if your stillness is the very thing that shakes their world? Hey folks, imagine this. Imagine standing on a battlefield where everyone is swinging their swords, shouting, fighting for attention, and there you are, calm, standing still, saying nothing. At first, they laugh. They call you passive. They think you've given up. But what they don't realize is you're watching everything. You're letting their noise exhaust itself. And when the dust settles, guess who's still standing? You. The one who didn't waste a single drop of energy trying to prove a point. That's what silence does. It doesn't mean defeat. It means control. It means you've finally stopped trying to water dead plants. You've stopped explaining your worth to people committed to misunderstanding it. The ancient Stoics believed that the moment you stop reacting, you reclaim your power. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." And that's exactly what silence is, not revenge, but evolution. They expected you to beg, argue, defend yourself, send long messages explaining what they did wrong, but instead you went quiet, and that quiet hit them like a punch they never saw coming, because silence removes the spotlight from them and turns it inward. It forces them to sit alone with the one voice they've been avoiding all along, their own. It's funny, isn't it? They used to say, "You've changed." And maybe you did, but you didn't become colder, you just became wiser. You learned that not every battle deserves your words. Some are won by walking away, letting karma handle what your arguments never could. Picture this. Silence is like a mirror. The longer they stare into it, the more uncomfortable they get. Because they start seeing themselves clearly. Every manipulation, every excuse, every time they try to control you, silence strips away their illusion of control. It's like taking the steering wheel back without saying a word. My friends, silence doesn't just confuse them, it teaches them. It teaches them that access to you is earned, not entitled. It teaches them that peace isn't passive, it's powerful, and yes, it might be hard at first. You'll have moments when you'll want to text, to explain, to prove your point. But remember this, people rarely learn when you keep rescuing them from the consequences of their own actions. Let them wonder, let them miss you, let them feel the absence they created. Because silence isn't about punishing them, it's about protecting your peace. There's a quote I love. Don't waste words on people who deserve your silence. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all. That's not coldness, that's clarity. It's the moment you stop chasing closure and start creating calm. So, if you've been doubting yourself, thinking your silence makes you weak, hear me out. It makes you rare. Most people can't handle the discipline of detachment. Most people panic when they're misunderstood, but not you. You're learning the art of stillness in a noisy world. You're learning that silence is not the absence of sound, it's the presence of strength. Write this in the comments to lock it in your mind. My silence is power. Go ahead, type it below. Show yourself, show the world, and show the version of you that once needed to explain everything that those days are over. And if this message already hits a nerve, if you feel that quiet strength rising inside you, press that like button and subscribe, because this is where your transformation begins. Stay with me, my friends, because what comes next will open your eyes to what truly happens when your silence lasts longer than they ever expected. Number 1. The moment they realize you're not coming back. Sometimes silence isn't distance, it's a decision. That line hits, doesn't it? Because deep down, you know it's true. There comes a moment when silence stops being something you fall into and becomes something you choose. And when you choose it, really choose it, they feel it. It's not the kind of quiet that fades in a few days. It's the kind that echoes. It's the kind that makes them check their phone again and again, wondering if maybe, just maybe, you've broken first. But nothing comes. No message, no reaction, no explanation. Just silence. And that silence is louder than every word you ever said. Imagine this. They're standing in front of a locked door that used to always open for them. They knock once, twice, then harder. Still nothing. The panic doesn't come from the door itself. It comes from the realization that the door is no longer theirs to open. That's what your silence feels like to them. For the first time, they realize they've lost access to something they thought would always be available. You see, people don't panic when they lose control over you. They panic when they realize they never really had it. At first, they tell themselves stories to keep their ego alive. They're just busy. They'll reach out soon. They're playing a little game. They'll convince themselves you're still emotionally hooked, still checking your phone, still waiting for that one message that brings them back into your orbit. But as the hours turn into days and the days turn into weeks, those stories begin to fall apart. Their confidence turns into curiosity, and curiosity turns into fear. Because silence has a strange power. It holds up a mirror, and when they look into that mirror, they start seeing things they never noticed before. The times they ignored your calls, the messages they left unread, the jokes they made at your expense, thinking you'd always laugh them off. All those little things come back like echoes in an empty room. Silence makes memory louder. It makes guilt grow teeth. They start wondering, did I go too far? Did I push them away for good? Were they really that done with me? And the truth they've been avoiding creeps in slowly, whispering where it hurts most. You took them for granted. The human mind hates uncertainty more than pain. Pain at least gives you something to feel. Uncertainty leaves you chasing ghosts. And that's what your silence becomes. A ghost they can't exorcise. It's not revenge. It's reflection. It's the sound of everything they refused to hear when you were speaking. My friends, silence is not easy. Don't let anyone tell you it is. It's not some peaceful meditation where you sit in calm confidence. No, it's a battle because your heart wants to scream. Your ego wants to prove. Your mind wants to be understood. There's a storm inside you that says, just say something. Make them understand how much they hurt you. But you won't. You can't. Because deep down, you know that every time you break your silence for someone who isn't listening, you teach them they can hurt you twice. Once with their actions, and again with your reaction. Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That's the essence of silence. It's mastering the mind's craving for control. You can't control what they think. You can't control whether they miss you or regret what they did. But you can control your stillness. You can control your energy. You can choose peace over panic. It's hard because silence feels unnatural. We live in a world addicted to noise. Everyone's posting, reacting, proving, explaining. The louder you shout, the more you think you matter. But real strength is when you stop trying to convince the world of your worth and start showing it through your calm. Silence is not passive, it's presence. It's saying, I'm here, I'm grounded, I don't need to be understood to know my value. And the funny thing is, the longer your silence lasts, the more they start hearing it. Every quiet day becomes a question mark in their mind. Every moment you don't react becomes a reminder that they no longer have emotional control. Silence slowly flips the power dynamic. What once made you anxious now makes them restless, because what they expected to be temporary is starting to look permanent. But let's break one of the biggest lies they tell themselves, that you're doing this to punish them. No, you're doing this to protect yourself. There's a difference. You're not trying to make them suffer. You're finally refusing to suffer for them. Your silence isn't coldness. It's clarity. It's the realization that your peace is more valuable than their attention. There's another lie they tell themselves, that silence means indifference. But silence doesn't mean you don't feel. It means you've stopped leaking emotion into places that only drain you. It's emotional discipline. It's not, I don't care anymore. It's, I care about myself more. That's the line between desperation and dignity. And yes, they'll feel it. They'll feel your absence like a shadow that doesn't fade, because it's not just that you stopped talking, it's that you stopped trying. They can sense it. The energy shifted. The connection they thought they could control suddenly feels foreign, unreachable. It's like the warmth they used to take for granted has turned into quiet, steady confidence, and they can't touch it anymore. My friends, silence breaks illusions. It doesn't just show them who you are. It shows you who you are without them. It's in this space that you rediscover your focus, your peace, your self-respect. The world won't always clap for your silence, but your soul will thank you for it. So when you're tempted to explain, when your mind says, maybe they'll understand this time, remember, you already explained enough. Silence is your final sentence, the one they can't argue with, because nothing haunts a guilty conscience like the absence of your voice. Write this in the comments right now to remind yourself, my silence is not weakness, it's strength. Show them, show yourself, show the world that you're no longer waiting for validation. You're walking in self-respect. Stay with me, because what happens next is when their confidence begins to collapse under the weight of your calm. Number 2, their ego starts to crack. Ego is just a fragile crown worn by the insecure. You see, my friends, when you stay silent long enough, something strange begins to happen. They start feeling their own weight. At first, they act unfazed, even proud. They walk around pretending your silence means nothing. They post their little stories, smile in photos, maybe even talk about how at peace they are. But behind those screens and fake smiles, their ego starts whispering things they can't quite silence. Because of your absence, doesn't feel like space anymore. It feels like a mirror reflecting everything they tried to avoid. They thought they could predict you. They thought your silence was temporary, a pause before your usual reaction. But when that reaction never came, their confidence began to melt, quietly, like ice under sunlight. They start asking themselves questions they don't want to hear. Did I really mean that little to them? What if they're actually over me? What if I push too far this time? And here's where the game flips. See, the ego feeds on control. It needs to feel like it owns the emotional script. The moment your silence stretches beyond their expectations, it rewrites that script. Suddenly, they're not the one choosing distance. They're the one being left behind. It's a strange experience for them, like a magician who lost the trick that always worked. They used to pull your emotions like strings, say something cold, act distant, then watch you panic. But now, nothing. No response, no fight, just stillness. And that stillness scares them more than your anger ever did. Because anger means attachment, silence means detachment, and detachment means they've lost the hold they once had. The human ego can't handle losing control. It panics, then blames, then pretends not to care. But deep inside, it starts cracking. It's like a mirror that looks fine until the light hits it from a certain angle, revealing tiny fractures spreading beneath the surface. That's what your silence does. It exposes the weakness behind their pride. They'll start inventing reasons to protect that pride. They're doing this for attention. They're probably talking to someone else. They're playing games. But the longer your silence lasts, the harder it becomes for them to believe their own excuses, because you're not chasing, you're not posting cryptic messages, you're not playing any game, you're just gone, calmly, quietly, completely. And that calmness, it's what breaks them, because deep down they always thought you needed them more. They believed you were emotionally dependent, too soft, too forgiving, too loyal to ever walk away for good. But your silence, your discipline, starts proving them wrong in real time. It's like watching a building collapse in slow motion. Every day that passes without a word from you, another brick of their ego falls apart. They might start overcompensating. Maybe they post something that feels directed at you. Maybe they accidentally like an old picture. Maybe they send a random message like, "Hey, how've you been?" They're not checking on you. They're checking their power. They want to see if the old buttons still work. But when you don't react, when you don't even flinch, that's when the panic really sets in. Because for the first time, they realize the power they had was borrowed. It existed only as long as you kept giving it. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus once said, "No person is free who is not master of themselves." That's exactly what your silence is teaching them. That their false confidence was never freedom. It was dependence disguised as dominance. They needed your reaction to feel significant. They needed your emotions to feel in control. But now, without it, they're left alone with themselves, and that's the one person they've never learned to face. My friends, this is the moment where most people slip. The moment you see their cracks, you'll feel tempted to step in, to fix, to explain, to remind them who you are. Don't, because that's not compassion. That's a habit. You've spent enough time patching the holes in their ego while ignoring the wounds in your own soul. Let the cracks widen. Let the illusion crumble. You're not abandoning them. You're allowing them to meet themselves for the first time. They might call you cold. They might paint you as heartless to others. But remember, when people lose control over you, they'll always call your peace attitude. Don't fall for it. Their opinion is just noise trying to pull you back into the chaos you escaped. Silence is your shield now. It's not revenge. It's recovery. And yes, it'll be difficult, because you're human. You'll have nights where you want to break the silence, just to remind them you still care. But you owe yourself something bigger than that. You owe yourself peace. You owe yourself growth. You owe yourself the quiet that heals what noise once destroyed. So, when their ego starts to crack and you feel that pull to go back, remind yourself of this truth. People who truly valued you would never make you feel replaceable, and those who treated you like an option don't deserve the privilege of your voice. Every day you stay silent, you're building strength they can't see yet. Every quiet moment is a brick in the wall of your new self-respect. Let them sit in their confusion. Let them guess. Let them face the echo of their own actions. Because nothing will humble their ego more than realizing that the person they thought needed them never did. Write this in the comments right now. My silence breaks their ego, not my peace. Show them. Show yourself. Show the world that silence isn't your weakness. It's your weapon. Because when the ego cracks, truth slips in. And trust me, my friends, what comes after that? That's when regret begins to whisper louder than pride. Stay with me. Number 3. The imagination stage. When the mind becomes their enemy. An empty silence can be louder than 1,000 apologies. That's the thing, my friends. When your silence lasts longer than their ego expected, it begins to echo in places they didn't even know existed. It's not your voice that haunts them anymore. It's the quiet. That quiet becomes a screen where their mind starts playing reruns of every mistake, every cold reply, every moment they thought they had control. They thought your silence would be temporary, a little phase before you came running back. But when you didn't, their mind went to war with itself. Silence is powerful because it forces people to sit with what they've buried. They can't escape into your reassurance anymore. They can't drown their guilt in your forgiveness. So the mind does what it always does. It starts creating stories. They start wondering, what are they doing right now? Who are they talking to? Are they happy? Did someone else replace me? Those questions start as whispers, but over time they grow into a storm. Imagine this scene. They're lying in bed at night, scrolling through old conversations, reading your messages like clues in a mystery they can't solve. Every time they see your name, it stings. Every photo becomes a mirror showing them what they lost. Every silence from you becomes a sentence their own guilt has written. They thought you'd always be one text away, but now it feels like your silence built an ocean between you, and they don't know how to swim across it. You see, folks, silence doesn't just stop communication, it forces reflection, and reflection is dangerous to someone who built their confidence on being chased. When they can't figure you out, their imagination starts doing the heavy lifting. It becomes their new worst enemy. They imagine you laughing again, healing, maybe even falling for someone who treats you the way they never did. And that's when panic sets in, because the idea of you moving on hits harder than your words ever could. There's a line by Seneca that says, "He who is brave is free." And your silence, my friends, is an act of bravery. It's freedom in motion. While they're trapped in their own thoughts, replaying every scene of what went wrong, you've already walked off the stage. They're still acting in a story that ended long ago. The imagination is cruel. It fills the silence with fear. They'll start convincing themselves of things that aren't even true, just to feel in control again. They're doing this to hurt me. They must still care. They're just playing hard to get. They'll reach out eventually. But the longer you stay silent, the more those lies collapse, because silence doesn't lie. It only exposes what's real. You can almost picture it, them checking your social media at 2 a.m., refreshing the screen just to see if you've posted something, anything that proves they still exist in your world, but they find nothing. No quotes, no sad songs, no indirect messages, just peace. And that peace drives them insane. Because peace means closure. Peace means you're not waiting anymore. Peace means you've stopped living in their storyline. And that's the hardest truth for them to accept, because they believed that silence was just a strategy, not a transformation. But the more time passes, the more they start realizing it's not an act, it's who you are now. You're not pretending to be calm. You are calm. You're not avoiding them out of anger. You're avoiding them out of evolution. But let's be honest, my friends, this stage is not easy for you either. Because while their mind is busy creating stories about you, your heart might still be tempted to respond. You'll feel that pull to check if they're okay, to see if they finally understood your worth. But here's the truth. They're not supposed to understand your silence right away. That's not your job anymore. Your silence isn't there to convince them. It's there to free you. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." And this is where your discipline gets tested, because when their imagination runs wild, your peace must remain still. When their fear grows louder, your calm must grow deeper. You've already done the explaining. You've already given them the blueprint. Now, your silence is the test they have to take on their own. And the irony, their imagination will always paint a picture worse than the truth. Because when people lose control, they fill the gaps with their fears. They'll imagine you happier, stronger, and more grounded than ever. And, in a way, they'll be right. Because that's exactly what your silence is doing. It's rebuilding you while dismantling their illusion of control. This is where you start rising. The same quiet that once felt like heartbreak now becomes your healing. You start realizing that silence is not about waiting for them to regret. It's about giving yourself room to grow. It's about teaching your mind to stop chasing closure and start building confidence. And the beautiful part, you don't need to prove anything. You don't need to show off your glow-up or post your peace. Your energy will speak for you. The world will feel it. They will feel it. And that's what terrifies them most, that your silence has made you untouchable. They thought silence would fade, but it evolved into presence. They thought distance would weaken you, but it built your discipline. And while they're trapped in their imagination, chasing ghosts, you're out there becoming everything they thought you'd never be. Calm, grounded, and complete. Write this in the comments right now. My peace speaks louder than their noise. Show them, show yourself, show the world that silence doesn't mean absence, it means arrival. Because when their mind becomes their enemy, your calm becomes your victory. Stay with me, because what happens next, my friends, is when fear turns into regret. And regret always comes too late. Number 4, the power shift, from needing to being needed. When you no longer chase, everything that's meant for you begins to find you. My friends, this is the moment the entire energy flips. The moment your silence stops being something they're confused by and starts being something they're controlled by. You see, at first, they thought they had power. They believed their distance would make you crawl back, that their silence would make you desperate. But now, the irony hits them. Your silence outlasted theirs. And suddenly, they're the ones checking their phone, overthinking every memory, questioning if they were ever truly in control at all. Silence does something. Words never could. It reorders the hierarchy of value. When you stop needing someone, they start needing your validation to survive. It's human psychology. What's predictable becomes boring, and what's uncertain becomes magnetic. Your silence created mystery, and mystery makes even the most arrogant ego crave your attention again. Think of it like this. When you were chasing, you were the flame dancing wildly, trying to be seen. But when you went silent, you became the ember, calm, steady, and impossible to ignore. They can't touch it without getting burned, yet they can't look away. That's what happens when energy shifts. You go from being the one seeking warmth to being the warmth they can't replace. And this power shift, it doesn't happen overnight. It begins quietly, like the tide pulling back before a wave. At first, they feel relief. Finally, no more arguments, no more pressure. But then, that relief turns into confusion. Wait, why haven't they reached out? Why aren't they fighting for me anymore? That confusion turns into curiosity. Curiosity turns into anxiety, and anxiety turns into obsession. Because the moment they realize they can't predict you anymore, they lose their sense of control. The truth is, your silence is not just absence, it's energy withdrawal. You stopped feeding their ego. You stopped being the emotional supply they subconsciously depended on, and when that happens, their world starts to tilt. They start craving the validation they once dismissed. It's like a drug withdrawal. They don't realize how addicted they were to your attention until it's gone. They'll replay the last moments in their mind like detectives looking for clues. Was I too cold? Did I push them too far? Maybe they're just pretending. And every unanswered question becomes a seed of doubt. That's how silence flips the balance. It makes them start searching for you the way you once searched for them. The philosopher Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That's exactly what you're doing right now. You're not fighting to control them. You're mastering yourself. And in that mastery, something shifts in the energy field between you and them. They feel it. They sense it. Even from miles away, they can tell something changed. You're no longer emotionally available, and that scarcity becomes magnetic. But here's where most people mess up. The moment they sense that power shift, they rush to test it. They post something indirect, or they send a little, "Hey, stranger" text just to see if it works. Don't. Because the second you react, you reverse the current. The moment you reply just to prove you've moved on, you remind them that they still have access to your energy. Remember this, silence doesn't just starve their ego, it feeds your self-respect. They might not admit it, but the shift terrifies them. They start comparing. They'll scroll through your photos, trying to see if you look happier. They'll imagine you laughing with someone else, and it'll sting like salt on an open wound. Because the power they once had to affect your emotions no longer exists. You've taken that power back without ever raising your voice. But let's break the illusion they're living in. They thought your silence meant weakness. They thought you were avoiding confrontation. They thought you didn't care enough to fight. What they missed is that silence isn't about indifference. It's about elevation. You've simply outgrown the argument. You've stopped trying to convince people who are committed to misunderstanding you. When the power shifts, their ego scrambles to make sense of it. They'll tell themselves lies to protect their pride. They must be seeing someone else. They're playing games. They'll come around eventually. But the longer your silence holds, the more those lies lose power. Because deep down, they know you're not playing. You're done. My friends, when you stop needing someone, you stop chasing the illusion of being enough. You start realizing you were always enough. They just couldn't see it. And once you accept that, the game changes forever. You go from trying to be chosen to realizing you already are the choice. It's funny, isn't it? The very people who once said, "You're too much," will one day whisper, "You've changed." And you'll smile because they're right. You did change. You became untouchable. You learned that peace is louder than arguments, That detachment is not coldness, but clarity. You stopped begging for closure and started living like the door doesn't need to reopen. The greatest power you'll ever hold is not making someone want you. It's making peace with the fact that you don't need them. That's when you truly become magnetic. That's when they start seeing your absence as the most haunting form of presence. Write this in the comments right now. I no longer chase. I attract through peace. Show them. Show yourself. Show the world around you that silence isn't running away, it's rising above. Because when the power shifts, my friends, that's when everything they took for granted starts chasing what it lost. Stay with me, because what comes next is when they begin to test your silence, desperate to break what they can no longer control. Number 5. When they start testing you. When they can't reach your peace, they'll try to disturb it. My friends, this is where things get interesting. When your silence starts lasting longer than their pride can handle, they enter the testing phase. You've probably seen it before. Out of nowhere, they resurface. Not with an apology, not with accountability, but with little breadcrumbs. Maybe it's a hey that feels harmless. Maybe it's them liking an old photo. Maybe it's an indirect post that screams for your attention without mentioning your name. They don't miss you yet. They miss their control. They're not reaching out because they've changed. They're reaching out to check if you have. It's like a fisherman tossing a hook into calm water, hoping you'll bite, because your silence has been too steady, too composed, too different, and that scares them, so they test it. They test your patience, your discipline, your emotional temperature. They'll play small games to see if they can still trigger you, because if they can make you react, they can convince themselves they still matter. Picture it like this. You've built a fortress around your peace. You've sealed every crack where chaos used to sneak in. But now they're knocking on the gate, softly at first. Tap, tap, tap. Hey, how have you been? Just checking on you. Hope you're okay. Sweet words dipped in curiosity, not sincerity. They're not coming back to fix what they broke. They're coming back to see if you're still broken. And here's the part that'll test you the most. Your heart will recognize that knock. It'll remember the warmth, the laughter, the promises. For a moment, you'll think maybe they've grown, maybe they've realized something. But let me be honest with you. Growth doesn't knock with games. Healing doesn't come wrapped in mixed signals. When people truly change, they don't test your silence. They respect it. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus once said, "If someone does you wrong, do not take it personally. They are acting according to their own understanding." And that's exactly what's happening here. They're acting from fear, not love. From curiosity, not commitment. They can't understand your silence because they've never mastered their own. They might post something meant to get a rise out of you, something that looks like happiness, like moving on, like indifference. Don't take the bait. That's not confidence, that's performance. Because deep down, they're not showing the world how fine they are. They're showing you. Every photo, every story, every vague caption is a coded message asking, "Are you still watching?" And your silence will hurt them the most when you no longer are. This is where your discipline is tested, because silence isn't just about not speaking, it's about not reacting, it's about choosing not to feed a situation that no longer deserves your energy. Every time you respond to a test, you confirm that the old you still exists, the one who chased, who explained, who reacted. But when you remain calm, when you don't flinch, when you choose peace over participation, you send a message louder than any argument could. That version of me is gone. They'll feel it too. The moment they realize their usual tricks no longer work, it's like watching someone push buttons on a machine that's been unplugged. No response, no energy, no validation, and that's when panic starts creeping in. Because silence removes the illusion of control, and people who live off attention can't survive without it. You have to understand this. They're not testing you to come back. They're testing you to stay relevant. It's about ego survival, not emotional connection. The moment they realize they no longer live rent-free in your mind, their pride starts to crumble. And the more desperate their attempts become, the calmer you must remain. It's like watching waves crash against a rock. The waves get louder, stronger, more chaotic, but the rock doesn't move. That's who you are now. You've become unshakable. Their attempts to provoke you will only highlight how much you've grown. They'll try harder and you'll stay still. They'll get louder and you'll get quieter. And eventually they'll exhaust themselves trying to reach a version of you that no longer exists. Remember this. Silence doesn't mean weakness. It means control. It's the art of knowing when to stop explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. It's the wisdom to let actions, or lack of them, speak louder than words. You're not avoiding the fight because you're afraid. You're walking away because the battlefield is beneath your purpose now. Yes, it'll sting. Seeing their name pop up again after weeks or months of nothing will make your chest tighten. You'll feel that familiar tug, that urge to reply just once, but don't. Every time you choose stillness over reaction, you build power. Every ignored message is a brick in your new foundation of peace. You're not punishing them, you're protecting yourself. And the most poetic part? The same silence they once mocked will become the silence they fear. They'll remember how easily they could reach you before, and now, no matter what they say, it's like shouting into a void. That's when regret begins to whisper in their mind. Because you didn't just walk away, you evolved. So when they start testing you, smile quietly to yourself. You've already passed your test. You've mastered the art of staying still in the storm they created. That's not indifference, it's inner power. Write this in the comments right now. My peace is not up for testing. Show them. Show yourself. Show the world that silence isn't avoidance, it's evolution. Because when they test your peace and fail, they finally meet the truth they've been running from, that you no longer need their validation to know your worth. Stay with me, my friends, because what comes next is when all their false confidence begins to collapse under the weight of regret. Number 6. When regret becomes their shadow. Regret is the ghost that visits long after the damage is done. My friends, this is the part they never see coming. The silence that once made them feel powerful now starts to haunt them. It follows them everywhere, in their car, in their bed, in the quiet moments when the noise fades and truth finally has space to speak. At first, they thought you'd come back. Then they thought they'd moved on. But time has a way of peeling off every illusion, layer by layer, until all that's left is the raw ache of regret. They'll never admit it out loud. Pride won't let them. But inside, they're haunted. Every memory of you plays like an unfinished song they can't stop replaying. They remember the things you said, the way you cared, the way you stayed even when they gave you every reason to walk. Those memories were once their comfort. Now they're their punishment, because your silence turned into distance, and that distance turned into finality. Picture this. They're sitting alone one night, scrolling through old photos they swore they'd deleted. Your smile hits them like a punch to the chest. They pause, zoom in, and for a moment, the air gets heavier. Because that face, the one they thought would always be there, is gone. Not physically, but energetically. The connection they toyed with isn't there anymore. You've reclaimed your peace, and now they're left with the silence they once thought they wanted. Silence doesn't just break people, it teaches them. It shows them what their ego blinded them to when it mattered most. They'll start remembering how many times you forgave, how many times you stayed up trying to fix things, how many chances you gave without ever asking for anything in return. And then the painful realization hits them. You weren't replaceable. You were the peace they mistook for boredom. You were the loyalty they confused with weakness. You were the calm they weren't ready to meet. You see, folks, regret doesn't show up all at once. It arrives quietly, like a shadow creeping behind them, growing taller each day. It visits them when they see someone who looks like you. It whispers when they hear a song you both loved. It crashes in when they realize no one listens to them the way you did. No one laughs at their jokes quite the same. No one feels like home anymore. Because what they lost wasn't just a person, it was a presence. The Stoic philosopher Seneca once said, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end." But here's the twist. They didn't expect the end to come from your silence. They thought endings came from arguments, from breakups, from loud closure. But your silence was different. It was peaceful, powerful, and permanent. It didn't explode. It faded. And that's what hurts the most. Because you didn't just leave. You outgrew them quietly. Regret has a funny way of turning confidence into confusion. The same people who once said, "I'll be fine without them," now find themselves wondering why the peace they bragged about feels so empty they'll look at their phone, tempted to reach out, but they'll stop. Not because they don't want to, but because they don't know what to say anymore. What do you say to someone who's clearly healed without you? What do you say to someone who became stronger in your absence? They'll scroll past your page, pretending not to care, but their heart skips when they see you smiling. Not the forced smile you once gave to keep the peace, but the real one that comes from finally being free. That's when the truth settles in. They didn't lose you when you walked away. They lost you when they stopped valuing you. But here's where the power truly lies, my friends. Your silence didn't just teach them a lesson, it rebuilt you. You found strength in stillness. You learned how to love yourself in the absence of their validation. You discovered that peace isn't something they can give or take. It's something you create. You stopped waiting for closure because you realized closure doesn't come from them. It comes from choosing yourself. And yes, it hurts to know they finally see your worth when you're no longer available. But that's how life works. Some lessons have to echo. Some people only learn through loss. And sometimes your silence becomes their greatest teacher. The ones who once took you for granted will never forget how it felt when you stopped trying. Your silence became their mirror, showing them exactly who they were. And now, no matter how much they evolve, they'll always carry that memory the moment they realize they pushed away the one person who truly cared. But for you, this isn't revenge, it's redemption. You didn't stay silent to punish them. You stayed silent to protect the peace that once belonged to them and now belongs to you. You've stepped into a version of yourself that doesn't chase, doesn't explain, doesn't beg to be understood. You've learned that the loudest power move isn't proving your worth, it's living in it. So let regret follow them. Let the silence teach what your words couldn't. because while they're haunted by the echoes of what they lost, you're surrounded by the peace of what you gained. You've closed the chapter with grace, not grudges. Write this in the comments right now. My silence taught them what my words never could. Show them, show yourself, show the world that silence isn't the absence of strength, it's the birth of it. And if this message hit home, if you felt that calm strength rising inside you, take a second and press that like button. Share this with someone who needs to remember their worth. And if you haven't already, subscribe, because this journey doesn't end here. Stay with me, my friends. The next chapter is about showing you exactly why your silence was never a weakness. It was preparation for everything powerful that's coming next.